Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Beyond the Whistle. Today is Season 4, Episode 11, and it is our March Madness special. I'm Henry Lapin, joined by Caden Leslie, PJ Neville, and Ryan Bell, and best time of the year for American sports fans. It's March Madness. It is going to leak in April. It's going to be an amazing tournament. Selection Sunday happened yesterday, and there was a lot of upsets, especially for me as an Indiana fan. But, Caden, what stood out to you yesterday?
Well, obviously me, you're the Indiana fan. I'm the Illinois fan, right? I really like Illinois' matchup in the Midwest. I think they have a chance to really make a run this year. Obviously, in 2021, I was disappointed when they had the 1 seed and they crashed out to Loyola. But, yeah, I'm really excited for Illinois to make a run this year.
Yeah. Indiana, absolutely robbed by the committee. The UNC athletic director, Bubba Cunningham, is the chairperson of the NCAA's 12-person selection committee. If that's not, like, insider trading or whatever, that's just a horrible decision. UNC only had one quad one win. Indiana had 4, and just a horrible decision. I think West Virginia, at least, could have made it over Texas or Xavier as well. I think there's a lot of SEC bias. SEC had, like, the most teams ever by one
conference. 14, I think.
14. It was the most by one conference ever for one tournament. I just think they kind of messed up with the Final Four teams in and out for this season, but it's whatever. Indiana will be back next year.
Yeah, and I think just, going off that SEC thing, it was the most by a large margin. I think, the next most, or, what was the previous record was 11.
Yeah.
So the SEC, they got a lot of teams in, and obviously, it's nearly impossible to play in that conference. Obviously, you got teams like Auburn and Alabama, but you have to play both of them for a total of your 4 games. So it's really tough, and I think that's why they let a couple of teams in, like Vanderbilt getting a 10 seed. Mm-hmm. You probably wouldn't have seen that in a lot of other years, but with such SEC dominance and not as competitive of a bubble not as strong of a bubble as we've seen in previous years, I think that's why the SEC got so many.
Yeah, it's very competitive, but none of those teams were, like, kind of standing out. They were all kind of just mid, like, all together.
Yeah.
Bell.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is the best time of the year. Seeing that bracket come out last night was so good. We sleep in May, obviously, John Rothstein doing all his quotes. But I think this year, talking about the bubble, that's one thing, but also just how dominant all the top seeds are this year. I think every 1 seed has a legitimate case for actually winning the whole thing. Obviously, Auburn, Duke, Houston, and Florida. I think Florida especially, they're the 4th 1 seed, but I think a lot of people are picking them to win it all, along with Duke. Those are probably the 2 favorites as of right now. But, you look at all the brackets, as it really is almost every year. A lot of teams have, upset picks or, cases where maybe you can make a second weekend run. But I think this year, more compared to the last couple of years, the top teams are really dominant.
Yeah. So now my favorite part of March Madness is the Cinderella runs. Last year we had Oakland with maybe the best three-point shooter in college basketball history. That might be a stretch, but Jack Golke. We saw Doug Etter and St. Peter's go on a run years before. So, Caden, who do you have as the Cinderella run for this year?
Well, Ryan, you're in my backup group, right? I don't know if you remember my username, VCULover44. Give me VCU to the Elite 8. I love their defensive style. I think that's going to be a really tough test for teams like Alabama to be able to go through. I mean, I do have Vanderbilt beating St. Mary's in the first round, but yeah, VCU, they're going to take Wisconsin, they're going to take Alabama. I have faith, and I believe that they can make a run to the Elite 8, where they will be stopped by my eventual champion, Duke.
That is a ridiculous.
Wow,
PJ, I want to hear your Cinderella take. Let's hear it.
Okay, so I got, I don't think that there's really a lot of teams that are going to wind up going, ridiculously far like we've seen in the past. I think that we're going to have a lot of first and second round upsets. I like a lot of the 12 and 13 seeds, especially in the South. I like that Yale matchup and the UC San Diego in their first year in Division I. But, I don't think that there's going to be a lot. I think if I had to choose a huge upset, give me Robert Morris.
Robert Morris.
Any reason?
Just a feeling. I don't know. I think, this is their first tournament appearance. I think, they kind of fit the mold for, kind of a breakthrough team. And we've seen a lot of, 15-2 upsets in recent years. And I think if anyone's going to get it done, I got Robert Morris.
Yeah. I got a team I've been liking for a while. It's the Drake Bulldogs. This is their 3rd straight year dancing in March. 30-3 record on the season, 17-3 in their conference. They had a 7-game winning streak up to this point, and they have 103 AP Bullets. Last poll just missed out on the top 25. Their best player, Bennett Sturts, averaging 19, 4, and 6 per game, shooting 40 from the 3. Maybe the best mascot in college basketball, copying Georgia there with their mascot Drake. Hopefully he's not acting like Drake with all those college kids around. But they beat Vanderbilt. They beat Kansas State. They beat Miami in the regular season. They have not just beat on these horrible teams. They've beaten good teams who are playing in March this year. They play Missouri round 1. That's going to be a tough matchup. Missouri did lose to Vanderbilt. And round 2, Texas Tech or UNC Wilmington, if that somehow happens. But I have them making it to the Sweet 16. Another team, I think UC San Diego. I think they're going to beat Michigan round 1. Their player, Onawina Tate Jones, no clue how to say that name, but New Zealander. He's averaging 25.5 and 3.7 per game. And I think that Michigan, I think they're coming in too hot. I think UC San Diego takes them. I think Drake Bulldogs makes a deep run to the Sweet 16.
Yeah, I think this year, I don't know about a full Cinderella run, as PJ kind of mentioned. I think there's a couple of first-round matchups where I do like, the kind of the underseed. I think one, going to the Midwest, I love High Point as a 13 seed. It's their first ever tournament berth out of the Big South. I think they're one of those mid-majors. Last year, they were the 1 seed in their conference tournament, hosted at home, and they weren't able to do it. They got knocked out, I think, by Longwood in the semifinals. But now playing Purdue in the first round. Purdue is not, your Purdue of old. Obviously, Zach Edey's gone, and Braden Smith is still the Big Ten Player of the Year, but I just don't know if I like him against High Point. I kind of like how the Panthers are in that matchup. And then also on that same side, I think Clemson versus McNeese is going to be a very popular upset pick. Obviously, McNeese last year maybe was the most picked 12 seed to win, and they got destroyed by Gonzaga, but that was more of a matchup game for them. And I think against Clemson, who is a very good team, 27-6, ACC semifinals, lost to Louisville. Good team, but I think McNeese, Will Wade is their coach, and I expect for him next year to go to a big school, maybe somewhere in the ACC or SEC. But I think 2 teams I'm looking at is High Point and McNeese out of that Midwest.
Yeah, you can never count out a team with this much aura and the team manager at McNeese.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Amir Khan.
He's going to be bringing out the boombox for that game versus Clemson, and I think that's, like you said, it's a very popular pick. So, Caden, what is your hot take for this March Madness bracket?
My hot take for this March Madness bracket, I don't know if it's necessarily a hot take given their tournament history, but UConn, they have the 8th seed. I have them in my Final Four. Okay, I don't know what you guys are doing here, but I have UConn in the Final Four. Look, I mean, I have the same thing as Henry here.
Our producer Rob does not like this.
Rob,
he hates this.
Get him out of here.
All right, so I do have Drake in the Sweet 16 like you, but I do have them falling to St. John's, and I really like that UConn-St. John's matchup, right? UConn favored in true shooting percentage, right? I like their ability to shoot those field goals and, just produce on the offense. And, yeah, I do have them falling to Auburn in my championship game, but, yeah, UConn to the Final Four. That's my hot take.
You have them beating Florida?
UConn, I have Florida. I have UConn beating Florida. What do you think about it? Why do you think that won't happen?
Bold. I mean, I know UConn's definitely playing well. They're probably as hot as they've been all year coming into this tournament, but I just don't think that they can compete with Florida's offense.
Like, I think UConn just has that tournament experience, and they just have like the rapport and the just identity as one of the blue bloods in college basketball that I can't see Florida going past them in that round of 32.
Definitely a hot take. I have that some of the other blue bloods, Kansas, Michigan, Purdue, are all first-round exits this year. I don't think any of them got lucky with their matchups. And I just think that, I mean, unless you're basing it just off tournament history, I don't think that any of them really have a good chance to make it anywhere far or even make it past the first round this year.
Yeah, for me, this kind of also builds off what you just said, Henry. I like a lot of those double-digit seeds. I think that we're going to see a record number of double-digit seeds moving on. I think, we alluded to that High Point, that McNeese. Those two, I think, have a very good chance. We mentioned earlier Vanderbilt, VCU, which still that's a bizarre username out of Caden. But I think a lot of these double-digit teams, you look in the South too, UC San Diego and Yale, those are 2 solid teams that could get it done. And I think that, Marquette, New Mexico State, I think that one's going to be a huge game because, Marquette has kind of fallen off towards the end of the season. They, were projected to be a pretty high seed, and they kind of fell down. And New Mexico State, they've been on fire, and, they've got Donovan Dent, too. It's probably, I don't think there's many players in college basketball better than him. So I think we're going to see a lot of double-digit seeds moving on.
Yeah, I guess my hot take, Elite Eight onwards, I think it's going to be all 1s and 2 seeds in the Elite Eight, and a high possibility it could be all 4 1 seeds in the actual Final Four. I think this year, compared to the last couple of years, the top teams, as I kind of mentioned earlier, are just so good. I think I saw a stat where a couple of years ago, the top 13 Ken Pom teams had the same as like the top 30 this year. So the top of college basketball is really elite. Auburn and Michigan State out of the South, which actually I think I might lean towards Michigan State in that matchup. Auburn's had a very bad end to that regular season, and obviously knocked out in the SEC tournament as well. So I think I'd like Michigan State there. And then really all across the board, Duke versus Alabama. I think it does depend for Alabama how Grant Nelson is, if he's able to play, dealing with the knee injury right now. Houston is kind of the one maybe question mark out of the Midwest, because if they play Gonzaga in the second round, that is such a tough matchup. Gonzaga, top 10 Ken Pom team. I think seed-wise probably could have been at least a 5 or higher, and especially the ratings and the metrics support that. But I'd like Houston and Tennessee out of the Midwest, and I think Florida is the best team in college basketball right now. I don't see them losing to UConn in the second round. I still think that Florida is the best, and they'd probably play St. John's in the Elite Eight. So I think all 1s and 2 seeds in the Elite Eight.
Yeah, I don't know when the last time we've seen that happen, all 1s and 2s for the Elite Eight, but definitely not in any recent years. So, Caden, walk us through your region. What's happening there?
Yeah, so I was given the Midwest region to assess. So first off, we're going to go Houston, right? Bell was talking about Gonzaga. Gonzaga over Houston, right? You were saying how that could be a struggle for Houston to play just in the second game, and I'm going to have Gonzaga taking that one. I'm going to have Gonzaga going all the way to the Elite Eight, actually, where they do eventually fall to Tennessee. You know, I love Illinois. You know, they're probably my favorite team, undisputed in all of college sports, but I do have them falling to Tennessee in the Sweet 16. Their run will end after knocking off Kentucky in the second round. And, yeah, Tennessee is my pick for the Midwest Final Four. And I also do have that high point upset against Purdue. I think that's a very popular one. I'm sure you guys have that as well.
Wait, so you have Houston knocking out the powerhouse of Southern Illinois, Edwardsville.
I was talking, I own the Southern Illinois crew neck. Now, given not Edwardsville, I actually didn't know Southern Illinois University had a sister campus. But, I mean, I think, unfortunately for my I know SIU's the Greyhounds. What is Edwardsville? They're like the
Cougars.
The Cougars, yeah. Unfortunately for the Cougars, I think their run's ending the first round.
Is that Kentucky-Illinois matchup based off actually believing it's true, or just because you're an Illinois fan?
I mean, like, it's mostly being the fan. Like, I think Illinois, I really want them to do good, and if that screws my bracket, so what? Like, at least I tried.
Yeah. So I'm looking over the East, and one upset I forgot to talk about is I have Akron over Arizona.
Really?
I have Akron losing to Oregon the round of 32, but I think Akron, I'm not liking what Arizona is doing right now. Another matchup, I have Vanderbilt. I think Vanderbilt is a good 10 seed. I think they could have been placed better than 10. And St. Mary's, I'm not liking the matchup for St. Mary's. Wisconsin as well, not a team I'm really high on. The Big Ten, outside of the top 2 or 3 teams, I think there's a big fall-off. Wisconsin, I don't know how they're a 3 seed pretty much, but I have BYU over them. And I have Duke, Bama, like you said, 1 and 2 seeds. I think the East, it's pretty easy to just easily pick Bama and Duke. I have Duke moving on, obviously, to the Final Four. But I think Bama, they got tough matchups, BYU and Vanderbilt, or St. Mary's if they pull off the win over Vanderbilt. I think the SEC-ACC matchup in the Elite Eight, I think Duke's coming out on top.
Yeah, so I got the South. Auburn, I think, whatever 16 seed they play, I don't think it really matters. I think they take that one home. And then that 8-9 matchup of Louisville versus Creighton, I think that's a good one. I think, I'm going to take Louisville in that one. Creighton coming out of the Big East. The Big East was a dumpster fire this year, if we're being honest. And hopefully with Kyle Neptune gone, that kind of brings a little bit better fortunes. But the Big East was not very good this year, with the exception of St. John's. So I think Louisville, I think they've kind of shown throughout the year that, they have the potential and they can make a big move. And I think with they kind of got a favorable matchup in Creighton. So I think that's good look for them.
And that game's in Kentucky, in Lexington, just down the road. So practically a home game for them as well.
And then that 5-12 of Michigan and UC San Diego. I alluded to this earlier. I think UC San Diego has a pretty good shot. Michigan, they are on, this is one of their best years in a while. But I still think UC San Diego, right, being their first year in Division I, 30-4, I think, they're riding almost a wave of coming in and all of a sudden being so dominant that I think they're going to continue that through Michigan, and maybe, in the coming years they could prove themselves as kind of a force to be reckoned with. And then I think also that Texas A&M Yale game, I think that might be the best game of this entire South bracket because, Yale, this is a team with tournament experience now. They've been in it for the past couple of years. I think they've got a good shot against Texas A&M. I wouldn't be surprised if we have a 12-13 matchup in the second round. And then Ole Miss against, of course, maybe even not, but UNC, everyone and their mother has been freaking out about that UNC getting in. And, I was getting so many Twitter notifications this week from Mr. Tisha pleading UNC's case. He might have been the only person on Twitter doing that, but, and then their athletic director basically gets them in is, the suspicion. But I don't think it matters. I think Ole Miss has been a very solid team all year. I think they've shown their worth. I think they actually make it to the Sweet 16, and they upset Iowa State, who I have moving in over Lipscomb, which is a school I've honestly never even heard of.
A lot of people have.
And then that Marquette, New Mexico, that game, I think that one's going to be awesome because, Marquette on one side, you have Cam Jones, and then on the other, we talked about him, Donovan Dent. I think that is going to be, one of the best games of the tournament. I think both those teams have some very talented players, but I think those two that I highlighted, that guard matchup is going to be really critical. And then Michigan State versus Bryant, I think that's going to be kind of just a run-through from Michigan State.
Mm-hmm. So who do you have coming out?
I think when we get to the Elite Eight, I think I got Auburn and Michigan State. I think what Ryan said with the 1s and 2s being very dominant this year. But I got Auburn moving on. I think, they've shown that they were probably the best team all season long. Almost nobody was able to play with them, especially in the very strong SEC. So I think that they move on over Michigan State.
Well,
Yeah, so I had the West. I think Florida, Norfolk State. Thanks for coming, Norfolk State. I mean, Florida might actually score like 140 points that game. Like that, they're 28.5-point favorites right now, and I think heavy bets will be on minus 28.5 for Florida. UConn, Oklahoma, interesting matchup. A lot of people thought Oklahoma might be a 10 or an 11 seed, so I think 9 seed might be overseeding them a bit, but I think UConn gets through that one. Memphis, Colorado State's a very interesting game because both these teams are arguably the two hottest teams in the country. Colorado State being that bid stealer, winning the Mountain West. They're favorites in this game, actually. They're 2.5-point favorites against Memphis, but I love Memphis this year, 29-5, have some great wins. They beat Michigan State in non-con as well, so I'll just go Memphis. That game is in Seattle, though, so a little closer for Colorado State. Memphis, Grand Canyon, another interesting game. Grand Canyon is not your normal mid-major school, right? They beat St. Mary's last year, almost beat Alabama, right?
Yeah.
So that's a close one. I got to go Maryland, the Crab Five, right? Obviously, nickname for their starting lineup. They're a really good team, but Grand Canyon, Ty and Grant Foster, very good as well, but I'll go Maryland. Missouri, Drake. Henry, I'm with you there. I got Drake. I think that they're such a well-coached team, and what Ben McCollum's done, all these guys from Division II. And it shows, hey, you can take guys from Division II, put them up into Division I, they can beat these SEC schools. I think they will beat Missouri. Texas Tech over UNC Wilmington, not much to say there. Tech's a very good team. I like Arkansas over Kansas. Obviously, Bill Self, John Calipari, two of probably the best coaches maybe ever in college basketball history. I'll go Arkansas. And then you look at Rick Pitino and St. John's. That little sub-region might have 3 Hall of Fame coaches. Does have 3 Hall of Fame coaches.
Yeah.
So St. John's against Omaha. But Omaha, you know what they do with the trash cans. Have you guys seen that? They destroyed the jump on the trash cans. So you got to watch out up there. But I'll go with that. Then Florida, UConn. Give me Florida there. Memphis versus Maryland. Close game. Kane, don't even shake your head. Dude.
Yeah,
Don't even shake your head. I'm not going to engage in that conversation. Memphis, Maryland, close one. I'll go Maryland. Drake, Texas Tech. Go Texas Tech. Arkansas, St. John's. I go with the Johnnies. I like Florida going into the Elite Eight, and I think they'll play St. John's there.
Yeah.
That'd be a great game. Out in San Francisco, so no really home court. Fans got to travel a lot. St. John's, Florida. I still think Florida is the best team in college basketball. That SEC championship run really propels them, so I got Florida making it out of the West.
I agree. So now it's time for our final predictions. Your final 4 and who's coming out on top, Caden.
Well, we got to get the UConn out of the way, right? Very controversial. It
What
seems
team
like.
are you a fan
but
of? UConn, Illinois?
UConn's a college basketball staple, right? You gotta,
Yeah.
they might have not had the best season they'd hoped for, but I think
just
they can
live
pull
in
it
the
off.
past with
They
all
can
your
pull it
picks.
off in March. Well, actually, I was.
Yeah, you gotta watch them
my
play
bracket.
this year, dude.
My bracket was top 500 back in 2021. That might be skewing
Villanova-
some of my
yeah, I
thinking.
think I know
If Villanova was in the tournament, would they be in the Final Four?
They would
Absolutely.
make a run. Okay, they would make a run.
Do you know Kyle
I'm a
Neptune
Villanova
is?
fan, and I don't even think
Do you know who
about it.
Kyle Neptune is?
All right, but getting UConn out of the way, right? We're pretty good on the other three teams, right? Michigan State, I have them making it out of the South. Duke, obviously, and then Tennessee from the Midwest is going to be my team in the Final Four.
Who's in championship game?
Championship game. I think UConn's magical run ends here. I got Michigan State over them, and
Thank
then Duke.
God.
Yeah.
Obviously, Duke wins the championship. I put 67-60. I don't even care about this tiebreaker score stuff. I just put whatever comes to my mind first. I'm curious about what you guys actually picked for that. See if we got anything close
The
to that.
score?
Yeah, the
I
tiebreaker
haven't
score.
really thought about it.
Yeah.
To be honest with you.
No, that is.
You didn't finish your bracket.
I
No.
put that in 5 minutes before I submit my bracket. Just
Yeah.
quick little Google search. So in the South, I have Michigan State coming out on top. West, Florida. East, Duke. In the Midwest, I have Kentucky coming out on top.
Oh.
I like Kentucky. They got a good offense, and I think it's going to be Michigan State over Florida, Duke over Kentucky. I think Duke's coming out on top. I still think with a healthy Cooper Flag that they're the best team in the country. I know the health is a little controversy right now. He's supposed to be good by Friday. I don't know how severe that ankle sprain is, but he'll come back. He'll be fine. They're still a great team even without him on the court. I have Duke over Michigan State in the finals.
Yeah, so I've got, I already mentioned Auburn making the Final Four out of the South. And I like Duke out of the East, too. I think, Henry, you mentioned they're a very good team, even without Cooper
Yeah.
Flag. And then when they get him, it's just a whole new level. I think out of the Midwest, I don't know. Not necessarily that I'm picking that, but I like Gonzaga to take out Houston. I don't think, Gonzaga, they've got a great resume, just not even this year, but in years past, they have so much tournament experience. So I think Houston gets taken out, and I like Tennessee to make it there. And then, in the West, I think this is a very contested region. I like Florida a lot. Kansas, of course, and St. John's. You can't count out those teams at all because of their coaching and their coach's experience. I think what Pitino has done in his 2 years of being at St. John's, right? Last year, they weren't a tournament team. This year, they're a 2 seed. So I think what he's done in just 2 years is phenomenal. However, I don't think that he makes it there. I like Florida to get in, so I got, 3 1 seeds and then 1 2. I think Duke makes it to the championship game. I think they kind of get back to where they were in the mid-2000s and even the early 2010s of just their complete dominance. I like Duke in the championship game, and I like Auburn there as well. Auburn has been the best team in college basketball all season long. They haven't let up really once. So I think that they make it there against Duke. And I don't know, this is real. This is kind of a toss-up, but I think I'm going to have to go Duke. I think Cooper Flag, he makes his name known as one of the best players in college basketball history, and maybe he goes for the repeat next year.
Belt.
Yeah, so I also have 3 1 seeds and a 2. I don't have Auburn out of the South. I think it'll be Michigan State, but Michigan State or Auburn, you can go either way in that Elite Eight game. But I just love Tom Izzo. They say January, February Izzo. You probably want to change that to January, February, March Izzo,
Yeah.
right? You win your championships in April. So I'll go Michigan State there. As I said, I have Florida out of the West. I'll go Duke out of the East. As you guys have both said, even without Cooper Flag, Duke is still the top team.
Never counted a team
Right.
with some good white chocolate on it.
Yes, put it that way. So I got Duke out of the East. Just ton of experience, at least in their freshmen, how they've been playing. And then the Midwest, I think this one is the toss-up out of all the brackets here. I'm going to lean Houston if they can get by Gonzaga, which I know you said. And Gonzaga can definitely win that game, but if Houston gets by the Bulldogs there, I'll have Houston. I'll go Duke over Houston in the Final Four, similar to how it went in the Sweet 16 last year. So I got Duke in the final. Michigan State, Florida. I think that run comes to an end. I'll go with Florida. Florida-Duke National Championship. I love Florida this year. I'm going to pick Florida right now. I think Walter Clayton, Elijah Martin, 2 of the best guards in the entire country, and you can't deny the success that the Gators have had in the toughest conference in all of college basketball, probably ever. I think they're going to carry that over into March Madness, so I got the Gators winning it all.
Yeah, so for anyone wondering, the odds to make a perfect bracket, 1 in 120 billion. The odds actually improved from last year. And final question, what is the right amount of brackets to make? I got it. You cannot make more than 5, or else I think you're kind
I'm gonna go. Watch this. One bracket.
No.
That's
One
a little-
bracket.
that's a little-
Come on. You
I
make
think
your
between
pick. You make
4
your
to 6,
picks.
4 to 6. I think it's the right amount.
Yeah, I think
One
it's
is just
fine.
crazy.
Yeah, I like the 4 to 6 range because
Yeah.
you know you gotta have like an upset bracket.
Yeah,
you
upset
gotta have
mascot.
one where
Yeah,
you-
true. Yeah, you the
Yeah,
mascot
maybe a
bracket.
mascot
Like,
bracket.
serious,
Like,
like
that's
that's
fine.
fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
like,
I think you gotta have like maybe 3 serious brackets and then some kind of like jokey brackets
Right.
that like
Some
Yeah.
coin toss.
yeah
or
maybe
something.
maybe you throw in a bracket where you got a 16 seed beating a 1 seed like
Yeah.
UNC Wilmington
Yeah.
could make a
that's
run.
it.
no,
That's just
SI
Caden's
Could make a
bracket,
run in
though.
my
that's just your
You
bracket.
could
That's
make
just
that. You
Caden.
could
Yeah,
make that
that's
argument.
just
But
his.
yeah, one bracket. Make your picks.
VCU
You're
lover,
done.
UConn
Yeah.
all the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're gonna have a bracket with VCU, mate. VCU UConn.
Yeah, you better have one.
Yeah,
seed.
yeah.
I might
VCU
honestly
championship game
I
is a
might honestly break the
possibility.
rule of making one bracket and just do a VCU bracket. To be honest,
Maybe that's your one bracket.
maybe.
Worst bracket
Yeah.
in America.
Anyways,
right
come
there.
back. Come back here when
Yeah, he
VCU
doesn't
makes
get
a
a
run.
single
Come
pick
back here when
bracket.
VCU makes a run.
Yeah, you're gonna be like a laughing stock.
Yeah.
But that is gonna wrap us up for our March Madness special Beyond the Whistle. That's season 4, episode 11, and we'll see how these brackets turn out. All of us are probably gonna be extremely wrong, and some team like maybe VCU makes a hell of a run this year, but we'll see. So thank you for watching. We'll see you next time. I'm Henry Lapin, joined by Caden Leslie, PJ Neville, and Ryan Bell. Have a great rest of your week.